Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be taking a look at the Egyptian Foreign Relations file for the year 2023. Obviously, Egypt is involved in many international affairs, be it in the African continent, the Middle East, and the international community as a whole. So we will be looking at the Egyptian diplomacy in tonight's episode. But before we start doing that, let's check out some of the main stories making the news today. And we'll start off with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who inaugurated the Global Congress on Population, Health and Development at the new administrative capital today. Addressing the four-day Congress, President al-Sisi described it as an important platform to discuss population. The head of state warned that financial resources directed to education cannot be increased under the increased population rate. He said Africa's population is projected to reach 1.6 billion in the near future, adding that overpopulation is one of the biggest challenges facing Egypt. President al-Sisi further said reproduction freedom is not ultimate because it is tied to the development file. He stressed on the significance of supporting the role of the National Council for Population and directed that the Prime Minister presides over the council. The President noted that costs of wars Egypt went through had affected resources directed to face overpopulation. Meanwhile, President al-Sisi attended the first session of the Congress, dubbed Population and the Future of Healthcare Challenges and Chances. Addressing the session, he said the state has exerted tremendous efforts to overcome overpopulation. He added that the past 10 years had witnessed big efforts in all paths to overcome the gap between population growth rates and the aim for population rate. And during his participation in the Africa Climate Summit in Kenya on behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli gave a speech at the International Climate Agenda session. Addressing the session, Madbouli stressed on the necessity of providing necessary funding to face the repercussions of global climate changes, which needs reconsidering current funding and reviewing the criteria of the flow of investments into Africa. This is in addition to putting a mechanism to using debts and transform them to climate funding. The Prime Minister also underscored the necessity of commitment by the developed countries to meet their vows of providing $100 billion annually to climate financing and the necessity of boosting multilateral system based on equality and considering the conditions of each country. Also, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry held talks with his Japanese counterpart, Yoshimasa Hayashi, in Cairo today, which tackled means of boosting bilateral relations in various domains, in addition to a number of regional and international issues of mutual concern. At a joint press conference following their talks, the two top diplomats hailed distinguished ties binding the two nations. Minister Shoukry said their talks tackled means of enhancing bilateral ties, including the resumption of direct air flights between the two countries starting September 14th and expectations of an increase of tourist flows. He expressed Egypt's appreciation to Japan's enhancement of the national projects in Egypt, including the Grand Egyptian Museum, which it was looking forward to participating in its inauguration ceremony. Shoukry said the two sides are looking forward to the upcoming strategic dialogue between the two countries in Tokyo next December, which they hoped would result in a declaration that translates tangible steps in cementing ties with the aim of realizing the two people's interests. He further expressed hope of expanding Japanese investments in promising and available fields. Minister Shoukry said they had exchanged visions regarding a number of regional and international issues of mutual concern, including the impact of the war in Ukraine on developing nations, describing the talks as positive and constructive. The minister noted that the talks probed the Palestinian cause, the situation in Libya and Yemen, as well as the crisis in Sudan. He said the visit reflects the two sides' keenness to foster bilateral relations, especially within the framework of the Japanese Premier's visit to Cairo, which witnessed a declaration of promoting ties to the strategic levels. For his part, the Japanese minister reiterated that Japan would continue consultations with Egypt concerning the global food security in light of the ongoing Russian-Ukrainian crisis. On Sudan, he expressed Japan's concern regarding the current humanitarian situation there. And later, the Japanese minister addressed the meeting in the Arab League headquarters, which was attended by the League's Secretary General Ahmed Abul Gheit. And in a separate meeting, Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri received today the Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Work Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini. The meeting probed the UNRWA work amid current regional situations in light of the urgency of the services it provides for Palestinian refugees in hosting countries. Shukri voiced Egypt's support for the agency and asserted the need for avoiding linking financial contributions to the agency with political considerations. For his part, the UNRWA Commissioner appreciated Egypt's efforts in drumming up international support to the agency and said his agency is keen to continue close consultations with Egypt. These were some of the main stories making the news today, but now let's check out this report regarding Egypt actually hosting the Global Congress on Population, Health and Development. It's a 4-day conference that started today under the auspices of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Under the auspices of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the Ministry of Health and Population organized on Tuesday the World Conference on Population, Health and Development at the new administrative capital. The 4-day conference comes within the framework of the state's interest in population development, as this crucial file receives great attention. Starting with the challenges and how to exploit human capital in the construction and development process of Egypt's 2030 vision for sustainable development. It will witness the participation of decision makers, ministers of health and population from different countries, ambassadors of countries, international partner agencies, UN and USAID banking entities, entrepreneurs, media and representatives of civil society, intellectuals and sponsors of success partners. The conference includes 65 dialogue sessions with the participation of 270 Egyptian and foreign speakers, while the scientific program of the Egyptian Fellowship includes 14 workshops and 33 sessions. The conference is presenting the latest technologies in the fields of population, health and development, and discussing ways of overcoming any obstacles facing the achievement of justice among people. Topping issues under discussion is the launch of the National Population Strategy and the General Health Strategy in Egypt. The conference represents a unique opportunity for researchers and policymakers worldwide to get first-hand information on the dynamic relationship between population, health and development. The conference will provide a unique opportunity for experts, policymakers, researchers and practitioners from around the globe to explore the dynamic interdependability between population, health and development. Throughout the wide range of activities during the conference, participants will interactively address challenges and forecasts, share experiences and best practices, and propose mitigation plans, adaptation strategies and roadmaps. Egypt will also renew its international commitments towards population issues and efforts to achieve maximum benefits from the demographic dividend and its potential economic gains. The population growth swallows the revenues achieved by the state in terms of economic growth and development, which negatively affects development efforts and per capita spending on education, healthcare and housing, as well as its share of water and agricultural land. Egypt is achieving continuous improvement as the number of births decreased from 2.7 million in 2014 to 2.1 million in 2022, and the total fertility rate decreased to 2.85 children per woman in 2021 compared to 3.5 children per woman in 2014.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're joined here tonight in the studio by His Excellency Dr. Mongy Badr, the Minister, Plenipotential and member of the UN Egyptian Assembly and the economic expert as well. Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for you, and good evening for you and your viewers.
Good evening, sir. Your Excellency, first off, before we start talking about the Foreign Affairs file, let's shed a light on the Global Congress on Population, Health and Development that Egypt is hosting today and for 4 days. How important and how significant is it for Egypt, one of the countries with a growing population, over 100 million, definitely a lot of restructuring and a lot of reforms within the health sector. So how significant is it with Egypt embarking and hosting such a conference, keeping in mind over 100 million of our population, a lot of work in the health sector, a lot of sustainable development work? How significant is it?
In fact, it's a very important conference, because last one, it was 1994.
Yes.
So now it's almost 29 years. Mm-hmm. And this proves that we have very active presidential diplomacy, balancing between local, regional and international aspects. Mm-hmm. Also, conference tourism, it's one of the tools which you can attract tourists, which you can keep your image among your neighbors and internationally. And also, it's a very sensitive topic now. If we are going to talk about population, health, development. And I remember that in Egypt we used to call health of Egypt coming from countryside. So that's why we go directly to the two programs, Haya Karima and Takaful wa Karama, which provide very good health to our people in countryside, and also succeeded to transfer village to, it was consumers to be productive village. Number two, sustainable development, which you have a balance between what's the resource you have and how many people at your home. So this is the challenge which His Excellency Mr. President try to find a solution without hurting Egyptian people. He tried to be very nice with Egyptian, and he tried to do his utmost. But our resource, it's a very limit. And thanks for God, Egypt, it has resources at all aspects. Tourism we have, oil we have, natural gas we have, agriculture we have, industry we have, mining we have. But unfortunately, from each sectors, we have a little. So we are not very rich in oil like Gulf countries, and we are not very rich in tourism like Italy or Spain or France. But we have a little in each sectors. This which make you a little bit satisfied, and you should be very optimistic when you look to the future, that we have many sectors. So that's why our economy doesn't count on one sector. What we need from population? We need from population to change from relaxing to competition. Now we are going to have multiple international order.
Yes.
So that's why this we should exert a lot of effort to be competitive, because if you didn't compete these days, history will say you bye-bye. You are not included in new order. Number two, the economy itself. Before we mentioned to any country that it's a rich country if it has oil or natural gas. But now the new economy, it's economy of knowledge, and the knowledge coming from people. And the people, we should make a classification. Who has the ability to understand the IT and the artificial intelligence, and who is the normal one, so we can go to classic industries, and who is like to be farmers. So classification we need it for Egyptian society. What I can say that our step to have this conference in Egypt now, it's very important, and it's a clear message to international bodies. Hey, we are here. We need our right. Think before you go to conflict, because you affect yourself and affect us, and we are not a part of your conflict. And also, we try to send a message to all people that we are caring about South countries. And this, it's coincide with BRICS message.
Yes. Well, this Congress is actually hosting about 270 Egyptian and foreign experts and delegates from all around the world, and hopefully by the end of the summit we will have a national population strategy and also a general health strategy that should be finalized at least by the end of the Congress in 4 days' time. Now, Your Excellency, also, if we are looking at our foreign affairs file now, today, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry met with his Japanese counterpart, Yoshimasa Hayashi, and they were talking, I mean, the Egyptian-Japanese relations have been historical. I mean, it's a long history of strong relations between both countries. They talked about many things. They talked about, obviously, issues of mutual concern. They talked about the resumption of air flights starting September 14th. They talked about the involvement of Japan with the inauguration of the Grand Egyptian Museum. They talked about many regional issues, and they also talked about the meetings or the talks that are slated for December later this year that will be taking place in Tokyo. How significant and important is it, the meeting between the Egyptian foreign minister and his Japanese counterpart?
In fact, this meeting, it reflects the historical relation between Egypt and Japan. And we have a good economic relation with Japan. And also we exchange training programs with Japan. And also there is a JETRO. JETRO, it's a Japanese authority which help us to develop our industry and also to develop our skills in exporting our goods to Japan. Don't forget tourism.
Yes, of course.
It's very, so I expect the number of Japanese tourists will be doubled or tripled by Egypt Air if we are going to start again. Another point, it's very political, that it's a balance between, we join BRICS, and BRICS, it's, if we mention BRICS, it's China, because it's the biggest one, China in front of Japan. So it's a matter of balancing between China and Japan. We have a good relation with China, but in the meantime, we respect our relation with Japan. and we never go to east and to neglect west. No, it's to where is our interest?
Yes.
The interest of Egypt where, and if in this direction, I will follow my direction and to conclude my interest.
Well, obviously the big news over the past week or so was Egypt joining the BRICS starting January next year. Now, everybody's looking at it in economic matters, in terms of enhancing our global trade and our economic prowess. But how much will this reflect on the Egyptian political weight within the international community, or at least within the countries inside BRICS?
Not only you, all the people, all Egyptians, they are asking the same. What's the benefits of joining BRICS? Tell me. So I'm briefing. Number one, volume of trade between Egypt and the 50 members, the founders of BRICS, China, India, Russia, Brazil, South Africa. It's around $26 billion volume of trade, import and export. Okay? And if we add the 6 new members, it will be around $50 billion. It's a huge amount of commodities which exchange between Egypt and BRICS Plus. So the concern of Egyptian citizen, he asked how we can decrease the pressure on dollars and how we transfer from dollars to yuan or to the virtual currency of BRICS. Number one, our total imports, it's around 18 billion. If we add the new, roughly $30 billion we import from BRICS members. Can you imagine if we are dealing in local currency, so we are going to save $30 billion. This it will make
it's a huge
balance
change,
and this it will be excluded from our demand on foreign currencies. It will be dollar or euro, whatever you want,
or rubles.
Okay, so this the most important benefit point. Number two, most or all of your trade, it will be in local currency. What it means? I mean that trade between Egypt and BRICS, it will be enlarged, it will be increased. And if your trade is increased, what it means? Foreign investment will be increased. So maybe very soon we are going to see that Russian industrial city, Indian industrial city, Chinese industrial city, all of them will be in Suez Canal zone. Number three, there is the bank, the new development bank of BRICS. This bank is ready to give you loans with very soft conditions. And it will be for grace period and a very long time. So you have a competition between BRICS Bank and IMF and World Bank. Competition at any field. It will bring benefits to the emerging market.
Yes. Well, do you think, Your Excellency, that this would also reflect Egypt's political influence? I mean, can it change Egypt's influence politically among the within the international community? I mean, people were talking about how it could actually be one way of solving the issue with Ethiopia, because Ethiopia is also joining BRICS, in order to resolve the Ethiopian dam. Is this a possibility that Egypt will be stronger politically as well as a result of joining BRICS?
Yes, 100%. It will be more power, more than before, because all of us in one group, so that it will be easy to have a direct dialogue between Egypt and this. Number two, you have the biggest China, Russia,
of course,
India. All of them could interfere to facilitate our dialogue with Ethiopia. So you can notice that from Africa, Egypt and Ethiopia, we have some disputes. And in Asia, you have Iran and Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. Maybe
Yes.
some conflicts. And it's not secret to mention that Egypt, it was the first country which has approval from all members
Yes.
to join BRICS. And it was Russia and China who lead this direction for Egypt to be joined. So there is some questions why Algeria doesn't join, Nigeria, Indonesia, and all of them economically are much, much bigger, more than United Arab Emirates
Yes.
or Argentina.
Yes, well, ladies and gentlemen, let's check out this report regarding the Egyptian foreign relations within 2023 so far, and we'll be right back to continue our conversation with His Excellency.
The world is in a state of upheaval, the like of which has been unseen in decades. Multiple conflicts and crises, from the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and ongoing repercussions of COVID-19 pandemic to economic strains, unaffordable energy costs, breakdowns in food supply chains, and the very real threat of climate change are arriving together and having mutually compounding effects. Moreover, they come on top of long-standing conflicts in various parts of the world, the continued plagues of terrorism, illegal migration, coup d'etat, and the proliferation of armed groups and militias, all of which are aggravated by the ambitions of non-Arab regional powers. Moreover, they come on top of long-standing conflicts in various parts of the world, the continued plagues of terrorism, illegal migration, coup d'etat, and the proliferation of armed groups and militias, all of which are aggravated by ambitions of non-Arab regional powers and the mounting pressures from the great powers in the context of the sharpening polarization among them. The Arab region is having to face more than its fair share of such challenges, especially given its own problems in Palestine, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, the instability in Sudan, Lebanon, and Libya, the still seething disputes in Maghreb, and Iran's destructive behavior in the Gulf, and Turkish adversarial policies in the East Mediterranean, North Africa, and the Horn of Africa. Irresponsible behavior on the part of the major world powers and their allies have brought the world to the brink, while international institutions, their hands virtually tied by pressures from the major powers, are barely capable of crisis management, especially in view of the magnitude and complexity of the interrelated challenges. The ongoing Russian-Ukrainian war is a major threat to international peace and security. The scope of the confrontation could rapidly expand even as the consequences of the ongoing war continue to strain the economies and well-being of countries and peoples across all the continents, especially those that are dependent on Russian and Ukrainian grain, fertilizers, and energy resources. Many countries have found it difficult to resist the economic and political pressures, sometimes amounting to blackmail that the major powers have employed to compel others to support this or that side in the war in Ukraine. What has buffered Egypt against such ploys has been its steadfast insistence on the principles of mutual respect and equality in all its foreign dealings, and in its staunch opposition to outside meddling in other countries' domestic affairs and attempts to infringe on their sovereignty and independence. Egypt is also a strong advocate of peace and stability in its regional environment, towards which and it promotes a spirit of cooperation, the adherence to the principles of international law, the commitment to international treaties, and support for UN organizations and international cooperation and mutual support. Cairo has thus been able to fend off such pressures by resting on its long-established neutrality, independent will, and commitment to the principles of international law. Egypt has managed its development process over the past 10 years in a way that has enabled it to conduct a balanced foreign policy in its various spheres of interest. Its approach rests on the foundations of the 30th of June 2013 revolution, which emphasized the importance of sustaining the independence of the country's foreign policy by diversifying its sources, avoiding alliances with powers engaged in disputes or conflicts, and maintaining an equal distance from disputants. This approach has helped Egypt to pursue its domestic goals, prime among which is the implementation of major social and economic development programs.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Continuing our discussion with His Excellency Dr. Badr. Your Excellency, now also Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli was and still is in Nairobi in Kenya to attend the first Africa Climate Summit. Now, Egypt was it hosted the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. In Dubai, Dubai will host the COP28. How integral is it that Egypt now is one of the main sort of players within the climate issue, especially within the Middle East and Africa region?
In fact, Egypt came back to Africa. Now we are participating at each conference in Africa. And it's a new strategy with the relation with Africa. The summit in Kenya, in Nairobi, I think it's completed what we done in Sharm el-Sheikh in last November. That's because Africa continent, we doesn't cause any problem to the climate. And we are, Africa, it's the most affected continent with the side effect of carbon and the climate change. Number two, we try to refresh the mind of developed countries. Hey, you promise $100 million annually for developing countries. Where? Nothing done till now. Number three, they concentrate on green economy. Now in Nairobi, they mention green economy and renewable energy. In this regard, I should mention to you that Egypt before announced that by 2035, 42% from our electricity will be generated from renewable energy. Yesterday, His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, he instructed instead of 2035 to be 2030. So 5 years earlier. So it proved to you and to all the people that Egypt is follow the international measures to minimize carbons and also to use to enlarge in renewable energy and in green economy. Number two, His Excellency Prime Minister stressed that if we are going to keen about green energy, green economy, and renewable energy, don't forget that we should make our economic development. This, to be keen about measures for climate, it doesn't affect my plan to have economic or sustainable economic development.
Yes.
This, it's very important to us. Also, Mr. Prime Minister, he presumes that Egypt is continuing in cooperating with African countries, especially in infrastructure. And don't forget that under NIBAD initiative, we are thinking to have a road between Alexandria and Cape Town in South Africa. And Egypt, we insist to help African countries to develop their infrastructure, because without infrastructures, there is no development.
Yes.
This is the point which BRICS group concentrate that they are going to help African countries to constructions and also to develop infrastructures, because Africa, we have a lot of resources, but we don't know how to use it because there is no infrastructure.
Yes.
in Africa.
Well, speaking of Africa, there are a lot of political developments and turbulences and different crises of different natures. Now, I mean, currently there's a situation in Sudan, obviously, Niger, Gabon, and Egypt is, I mean, it really has a certain very politically and reasonable and logical and peaceful diplomatic strategy and attitude dealing with all of these. But how do you see the strategy or Egypt's international dynamics dealing with all of these issues? And I mean, also, if we're looking at how the whole African continent is being affected by the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, and we've seen the Russia-Africa summit that took place in St. Petersburg. So how are we juggling all of these factors?
Yeah, in fact, related Sudan, you know, His Excellency El Burhan was here in Alamein, and he mentioned many positive ideas. Number one, he is thinking to form caretaker government and to exercise its power from Port Sudan. This it's good, and this government will take care about coming election. This number one. Number two, he requests to have direct contact, especially Egypt Air, and also to enlarge the borders station between the two countries. The third one, Mr. El Burhan, or General El Burhan, he mentioned that be calm, that now Sudanese people and the Sudan army is only united, and now it's one body. And he mentions that it's a few of days that we are going to control all the situation in Sudan. That it's good news that if you have people with the army, so you guarantee that Dam Syria it will be eliminated very soon. And if you follow the news that you mentioned, that Sudanese army now, they are concentrated their attacks on Dam Syria, and we hope very soon our brothers in Sudan go back to their homes and also to enjoy their resources, to enjoy their homes. In Niger, you know that France was dominated in Niger since a long time, and even after 1960, they still dominate all, especially uranium and the gold mining and something like that. There are 4 countries in Africa: Mali, Burkina Faso, Gabon, and in Niger. All of them would like to say to France, enough, that they would like to use their natural resources for their people. Because of what? Mali is very rich in mining, in gold.
Yes.
They have no reserve.
But Nigeria doesn't share the same sort of attitude.
Yes, you are right. Because Nigeria, it has another attitude. They are very close to states. They are very close to West, and also they are very rich in oil and gas. So since independence, that Nigeria, it has a special line in foreign relation. That if you would like to understand Nigeria's situation, look to United States, what they want. So we can exclude Nigeria from our equation, and but you know, in fact, their Congress or in Nigeria, they refused to interfere in Niger land or something like that. They refuse. That it means that they control the decision of their president. So there is no approval from Nigerian parliament for the president to interfere in Niger land, in Niger.
Yes.
You know, before Nigeria and in Niger, it was one state.
Yes.
And from the name in Nigeria, Before Nigeria, it was Niger land. But this it changed to Nigeria. For that conflicts between Russia and Ukraine, in fact, this conflict affected in 3 stages. The first one, some countries already benefit from this conflict. Like what? Like United States of America and all the countries producing oil and gas, because the price
Went up.
Number 2, there is a loser. First loser, Ukraine. Second, European countries. All of them are loser. There are some countries lose and win. One of the, it's Egypt. We import inflation from that countries. And in the meantime, our direct investment is going too high, tourism is going too high, and Egypt will be one of the countries in supply chain. And also now we understand that we are strong in military industry. Before we are not understand that we have a good industry in military sector. Also our foreign policy, it was very soft, and we play very well how to maximize our benefits from west and east. And finally, in fact, we can mention that our country already have a good lessons from the history, and now we are working in one track. This our track now, how to maximize the benefits and the interest for Egypt and Egyptian.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is no secret that the Egyptian diplomacy is renowned for its prowess and how effective it could be, and how subtle it is at the same time. And as His Excellency mentioned, Egypt is involved in many files, many to actually try and cover in tonight's episode, be it in Africa, East or West, the whole international community. But hopefully we will be as successful as we have always been with our lessons in history, as His Excellency mentioned. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, His Excellency Dr. Mongy Ali Badr, the Minister, Plenipotential and member of the UN Egyptian Assembly and economic expert. Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.